It's 9 o'clock. I'll call January 26, 2016 Board of Supervisors meeting to order. We do have a quorum. I don't see Pastor Mullen, so I'm going to ask Dr. Hausman if he'll do our invocation. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you that we are able to be here today. We pray that people will continue to be safe and warm. Father, as we deliberate today on the decisions that we make, let us make all decisions with openness and transparency, and that are fair and will benefit the citizens of our county. And that simply is our prayer. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome everyone this morning. We'll move right on into our agenda. Citizens time. There's no one signed up for citizens time, but I seen somebody come in late. Come on up if you want to speak.
I won't take but a moment of your time. As y'all are aware, we still have no director for the library. And I have done my best. Hopefully good report. I got Billy Bowers to help me with it on a 5-year capitalization report for the library. It's something that hasn't been done in a couple of years because we haven't had a director. So I just wanted to hand that over for y'all's perusal. I don't think it's worth your time to go line by line. That's something that you can do on your own at another meeting. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else would like to speak during citizens time? Hearing none, I'll close citizens time. We have approval of the January 12, 2016 minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any corrections or changes? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 And chair votes aye. Motion passes 5 with 2 absent. Payment of invoices. I entertain a motion to pay the invoices.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion second to pay the invoices. Is there any invoice any board member would like to discuss? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
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 And chair votes aye. Motion passes 5. 2 absent. Old business. Mr. Dalton, under old business, we have appointments.
Appointments at the last meeting, we discussed, or y'all discussed appointing to the new Exposition Center Authority, the Recreational Authority. So we placed that back on the agenda for today.
Okay, if nobody has any objections, I think I'll move that to the end of the meeting where I have time we can sit and discuss.
May I ask, is this open session? Is it closed session? Since it,
Open
I assume it's open session.
session.
okay.
I had the same thought, Gary, because I mean, it's kind of like you're hiring somebody, so I didn't know if it was personnel.
I mean, we'll be, the only reason I thought, we'll be discussing people by name.
Well, if the board prefers to do it in closed session, then we can, if Mr. Scott says it's allowable, that we can discuss it in closed session, then we'll do it in closed session.
I think I would be more comfortable doing that. I mean, if it were,
I think so, because that way if you've got something, I mean, it's not necessarily our opinion, but I mean, if we have to voice the public's opinion, because I've had people call me about certain people on it. And if you have to voice their opinion, I mean, I don't think everybody in the country needs to know what that person's opinion of that that person is.
Okay. Well, we'll discuss that in closed session.
And I'm assuming, Mr. Chairman, that's appropriate to do that? I would.
Scott's,
Nodding his head.
I'll confirm that before we get there.
Okay. Okay, move to the end of the meeting. Mr. Dalton, anything under other and old business?
no, sir.
Okay, moving on to reports. I don't see Ms. Gwynn this morning. I do see our pay. Do you have anything? Okay. Would you like to give an update on the assessment? How it's going? Yes, please.
They finished Speedwell District, I think, in a roundabout way. They're saying they're having problems with their maps, and they said they had 350 mapping problems, but I don't understand. They said they can't see the houses. The houses are on the road, and I don't understand why they can't see them, even though they might be on the map, not be on the map or whatever, but they have the addresses. But when I asked them, they told me it would take 3 to 15 minutes longer if they had to look by address. Well, to me, if it takes you 3 to 15 minutes longer, you need to look by address, because they say when they finish, they'll go back out there. But to me, it would be easier to do it while you're there, and if it does take you 15 minutes longer. We had a meeting, Slell and
Brandon.
Brandon, I can't think what his name was, Brandon, on Thursday, and I don't think there's as many map errors as what they're saying. And when they gave me the list, they would have an account number, but no house number. So I don't know what the problem is, because some of them don't have houses on them. So, but they're working. So,
Okay.
okay.
Mr. Dalton, anything you would like to add?
We went through, we had a list. We had asked the reassessment people provide us a list. There are some mapping errors that have, I guess, from the years that we had an independent person doing that didn't get on there, but it's a matter of looking at digital ortho. If you see a 911 address and a map number, their job is to assess it. If they're pulling it up on their tablet, if they see a map number and the card doesn't have a house on it, they're just noting a mapping error. Or no house. But we're working on that, or Mr. Moore's working on that.
And a lot of them are old maps that the plats weren't recorded years ago.
Yeah, so, but at the end of the day, the Pearson appraisal agreed to go, each one that doesn't get assessed this time, they will have a list, and they will be back out in the field to check it along with new construction. But that's not, I guess it was a consensus from our side. That wasn't the preferred method, but if they're going to do it that way, I don't know that we can direct their work for them.
Okay. Moving right along, Water Committee report.
When do y'all want to do it? 'Cause
Oh.
I know I wasn't at that one.
Oh.
I was driving the school bus.
That's right, I forgot you weren't there, yeah. Yeah, the Water Committee met on January 19th, 2016, and we made the following recommendations. One, to approve Barron Springs Division 2A change order number 2. And that was putting in another vault to make it easier, I guess, to access, to put a bypass around and that sort of thing. The vault we already had, and so it's just to make things easier and more workable, but it is a little addition.
Okay. Coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye.
And the second one was to approve Barron Springs Division 3 change order number 1. And basically, what this is, it's a small, budget change, but it deals with erosion control around the construction. And that was, was left out and overlooked, by everybody. So it was just, something that needed to be added. It's a little over $2,000.
Okay, any other questions come from committee? It doesn't need a second. Hearing no other discussion, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Is that all from the water committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next is the budget committee.
Mr. Chairman, the Budget Committee met on January 21st, 2016, and made the following recommendations. The first one, to amend and appropriate $1,500 to line item 3102-42820, Enforcement and Traffic Education Tuition.
Okay, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Second recommendation is to amend and appropriate $7,272 to line item 31026, Victim Witness Grant.
Okay, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any discussion, questions?
Mr. Chairman, and that should indicate that we accept the victim witness grant for calendar year 2016.
Okay.
Okay, with the amended motion. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
The chair votes aye.
Third recommendation is to amend and appropriate $2,513.21 to compensate for reductions in the Build America bond, which subsidizes due to sequestration.
Okay, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye.
And lastly, to prepare a letter for inclusion in the Wythe County Community Animal Response Team's Wythe Bland Foundation grant application stating that the county's intention to maintain and insure a pet sheltering trailer if the grant is awarded.
Okay, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Anything else from the budget committee?
No, sir.
Okay, county administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is a letter from the sheriff's office, from one of his deputies, concerning, I guess, what I would consider overcharging of towing and wrecker service. I would ask that the board get the county attorney to work on some means of, if you're going to be dispatched by Wythe County, that we set some recommended maximum fees if you're to be on that
List.
dispatch list.
Does any board member have any questions contained? I'm sure you read the two complaints in your board package, which was charged to just simple vehicles and not really anything but loading them up on a flatbed and bringing them back to town. And the prices that were charged was, to me, was outrageous. But I think we need to have the county attorney look into it and see what we can do as far as limited amount of these towing companies that they can charge on certain calls.
Well, and in this one too, there's such an inequity. You know, two people and one charged much less than the other, so, yeah, I would agree that we do that.
Okay.
Is this just gonna be for cars and trucks, or is it gonna be for big trucks?
Coy, my take on the commercial trucks are a different animal because each wreck is so different. Last week when we had a truck turnover at New River Bridge there, the effort required a different kind of trucking. I think what we're looking is just normal car, passenger car and stuff.
I agree with you. I agree with you there.
Okay. Next item is New River Mount Rogers Workforce Investment Area Consortium Board has put out a package, RFP package for Title I programs. We have the whole package here out front. If anybody's interested in those workforce investment proposals or submitting one, we'll make you a copy. Mr. Chairman, if I may, as everybody knows, over the weekend we had a major snowstorm from dispatch. We dispatched emergency service calls 322. 38 of those were rescue squad calls, 7 fire department calls, and 232 were police calls of assistance. The fire department calls, most of them were due to wrecks. We had one structure fire down on 94 that they pulled water out of a fire hydrant. Excuse me. It created some water hammer during that, which resulted in a water line leak on 94 that we'll be fixing today. It had no bearing on the major water line leak in front of Speedco on East Lee Highway, which is now repaired and everybody back in service last night. But a lot of calls, a lot of staging of ambulances around. A couple of the rescue squads actually moved ambulances around to different parts of the county so that they wouldn't have to answer the calls from their central location. And otherwise, we stayed in the EOC most of the day last Friday, closed it down around 5 o'clock, 4:55. Wythe County had no major power outages. Everybody did a great job in prepping. We had a meeting on, I guess it was Thursday, with all the agencies in the county, from DSS to the school system, sheriff's department, town police, health department, everybody that would open the center. That went really well. Everybody, the two towns, everybody had a good plan in place. Glad we didn't have to open a center. But I think it sort of proved that if we had to, we could have in a short period of time. But I think you could commend all the emergency service people and dispatch and sheriff for a job well done to keep everything moving. And the citizens for staying off the road.
That helped a lot. And I would like to say on behalf of the board, to thank the building and grounds crew for getting all the parking lots and the sidewalks clear. Come into work yesterday morning and didn't see any ice or anything on any of the parking lots or the sidewalks around the complex. And for the water department guys getting out and working, I don't know, 2 days on the main line leak down in
Well, we probably ought to show our appreciation to say thanks to Grubbs. Our tractor with the blade broke over the weekend, and the funeral home actually cleaned the courthouse parking lot and stuff for us. So.
Well, yes, we need to send a thank you letter.
Okay.
It's always good to have morticians around.
That's right. But that just shows the effort everybody around has and goodwill to help the county out. So I thought that was a good thing.
Mr. Dalton, do you have anything else?
No, sir. I think that everything I have today.
I will ask you, I know in Charles, Chief Deputy Foster talked to me this morning about the surplus property, and I told him, mentioned that, we'll send that to the Budget Committee for consideration, and Mr. Foster will let you know when we have the Budget Committee meetings. County Attorney's Report.
I have nothing to report this time.
Okay. Board of Supervisors, Black Lake District. Dr. Hausman.
I don't have anything to report, but I have a question, just, I guess, a legal question, like with our committees. If, for instance, Water Committee, is made up of 3 people. Well, let's say that Mr. Willis has a particular interest in a water project that we may be developing. Can a 4th member of the Board of Supervisors come? Because that's illegal, because it makes a quorum.
Makes it a quorum, and it's you
Okay.
can actually.
Then it's a board meeting.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to double check. That's all I have, sir.
Okay. Mr. Willis,
Nothing at this time, sir.
Mr. McRoberts,
Don't have anything this time.
Mr. Horny.
The fire department stuff, is it somewhere else that
Actually, it didn't get in. Jerry sent it
Yeah, I know
on,
it didn't get in the actual agenda,
but we will hand it out later today.
but, okay. Then I don't have anything this time.
Okay. and,
But you're welcome to bring it up if you. That just shortens the process.
the only
I don't
thing
have the stuff right in front of me, so. I
Okay.
mean,
Okay. The only thing I would like to thank the citizens of the county for this past weekend that we didn't, they did stay off the roads. We didn't have no major power outages, and everything seemed to go well. I know the grocery stores was out of a lot of things, but I think people made the best of a bad weekend, and we were lucky that we didn't have the wind that they had down east. I mean, yeah, they had 70-mile-an-hour winds down on the coast. If we'd had that here, we'd had a lot of power outages and drifting. We had some drifting, but not very bad drifting on the roads. That's all I have. We'll go on to new business. We have the consent calendar for January 26, 2016. I entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Mr. Chairman, I make that motion.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye.
You miss Joe, don't you, Gene?
Yeah.
Okay, moving right along with county audit report.
Mr. Chairman, I had requested the auditor show up at 10 o'clock this morning.
Oh, okay, we're running a little bit ahead of time. Okay, we'll move on with the Joint Public Service Authority audit, 2015. Do we need to approve that?
We do need to
Accept.
accept that.
I entertain a motion to accept.
I would make that motion.
Have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Next item is DHCD Enterprise Zone Boundary Adjustments. Mr. Dalton?
We have Mr. Manley with us today. They did all the work, I just signed the papers. David, if you want to come up and tell us where we're at with that.
Good morning, David.
Morning.
Dave.
I'm happy to say we're done with that. After a weeks-long process of approvals and waiting for signatures and things, that we finally got our letter probably a week or 10 days ago saying that everything was done. So that process is complete, and hopefully won't have to do any more of these for the foreseeable future. But if we need to, we certainly know how now.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
David. Okay, next item is Office of the Governor's letter regarding training center. Mr. Dalton.
It's a nicely worded letter saying thanks for the letter, but we're moving forward with closing of the training center.
Yeah. Hopefully the General Assembly will, something to come out of that that will help keep the training center open. I don't know whether they can because of the court's decision, but hopefully they can. Okay, Mr. Dalton, is anything under other, or does any board member have anything under other?
Yep, but I was hoping we'd take a break here when Corbin got here. So,
Mr. Gwen, come in.
Okay, I didn't even see you come in, Lori. If you'd like, would you like to come up and give the treasurer's report?
Having to wing it this morning, I had a taxpayer to call, and their revenue, I think, is probably more important than me trying to get here when I needed to be. But my apologies for being late. I'm so excited to be here and be presenting this to you. But currently, for our consolidated account, we have $57,210,870 in the account, and our general fund is currently at $39,357,592. I can't talk this morning, excuse me. I've been sick for 2 weeks. My group welcomed me on board by making me sick, and I've just gotten my voice back. So we're still struggling a little bit. But since your last report, which was balances as of November the 30th, we have collected $6,283,641 in taxes. So we collected a large chunk. Of course, due date was December 5th. So since your last full financial report before your board meeting, our due date has come and gone. We still have people coming in that we're collecting from. Actually working right now to revise our delinquent notices. I'm hoping to, if Mr. Southers can work it out for me, we're kind of working on that right now, but I'm hoping to include delinquent balances on our delinquent notices because they haven't been printing on there. So I'm not sure if that's going to end up having to be a totally separate bill, and I hope not, because I don't want, if someone owes 5 years of real estate taxes, I don't want to send them 5 bills. I want one bill with full delinquent amount on there. So that's one thing I'm looking at changing, that hopefully that will vamp up our delinquent collections whenever we get those out. But those will go out the 1st of March, but I'll keep you gentlemen updated on that. So my voice is giving out on me again. So. But do you all have any questions at this point? I'm still getting my feet wet. I'm in up to my knees, so at some point hopefully the water will subside to my ankles anyway. But if anything I can answer at this point, I'll be glad to. If you have questions, concerns, please come to my office, call me anytime. Be glad to answer anything I can.
When will the new software start to be implemented into the treasurer's office?
For my bookkeeper, it is to begin July 1st. But as far as tax collections, cashiering program, everything else in the office, it is not scheduled to begin until January 1st, is my understanding for Mr. Grant, right? Okay. So that's kind of where we are. So I'm excited for it. I'm anxious to see what the system will do and kind of how we can tweak it, and my understanding is it's there, we can build anything we want on it, so I'm hoping it'll be a vast improvement for my office especially. So.
Does anybody have
Lori,
any
if
more?
you're only up to your knees, you're doing great.
That's what I was gonna tell her.
Well,
I'm impressed.
not being able to talk for 2 weeks, it kind of changed perspective a little bit because most days I was at a whisper or very hoarse, and administration office would call and be like, hello. I could barely talk. So I've kind of had to, I've worked on other things, and now I'm trying to get back into the things I really wanted to tackle at the first of the year, but I'm trying to figure a few things out and processes for the county and things like that. So, so far, they haven't sent Sheriff Dunnigan after me or anything like that to haul me out because I messed up on a paper or whatever. So far, we're doing good. But thank you all a lot. I'm glad to be here, and I again apologize for being late.
Well, and I apologize for not getting down to see you. I have
That's
come
okay.
by, but you've been busy,
Hey,
so.
you didn't want the crud, I understand. And I think it's making another round in the building, so you guys might want to think about it for a little while before you come. But
But if you need anything from the
Okay.
board or anything for us, just let us know.
great,
and
will
we'll
do.
work.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we want to take a recess for about 5 minutes. We are in recess. Yeah, we have two that's absent.
Hey, how are you? Okay.
Thanks for having me. I usually get a minute or two to kind of sit down and rest up, but that's all right.
We were moving pretty fast this morning.
The audit went well this year. You got some. He gets the level. The audit went well this year. I tell you, Bruce and really the county staff get a little bit better every year. So any adjusting entries we give them, they learn from that, and then they're making a lot of those adjustments in subsequent years. So the audit did go extremely well. In fact, we were a little under budget, so you guys will get a little bit of a discount when we do send out the final bill. But I'll kind of go through the handout here and then answer any questions that you have. And on page 1, we've got some historical information looking back to 2008, coming forward to 2015. I kind of highlighted the lines that are important to me, at least the things that I look at. That yellow line down in your general fund, that represents your unrestricted funds, so they don't have any external restrictions on them or internal designations for that matter. So they're basically for use at your disposal. Down a little bit from 2014 and 2013, but still a healthy balance. And we'll talk a little bit later about a bond covenant that you have that's going to require you keep a pretty healthy balance in that line item. Long-term debt for the general government was just under $43 million, and you can look back in 2008, it was a little bit lower, quite a bit lower at $29 million. The next line down, enterprise funds net position, that's water and sewer. And enterprise funds, we have different bases of accounting. So when I talk about fund balance for the general fund, that's a short-term look. That's basically short-term assets minus short-term liabilities, almost very close to a cash basis accounting. For enterprise funds for water and sewer, we have what's called full accrual accounting. We take all the assets of the system, the lines in the ground, their original cost depreciated over time as they're used. So when we say net position for water and sewer, that's all assets of the system, cash and the infrastructure that you have in place, the depreciated value of that, subtracting off any liabilities that you have, including long-term debt. So at any rate, the water and sewer fund ended down a little bit from the prior year, but not substantially, at just under $31 million. and long-term debt for the enterprise funds has been fairly consistent around $20 million. That's $21 million this year, but fairly consistent through the look-back period of 8 years here. All that being said, the county has a debt per capita of $2,176, and we don't have state averages or recent state averages on that. So we have to go back to 2010, and we see the state average in 2010. But the weighted average was $2,694, and the unweighted average was $2,000. And the reason I have both of those there, the weighted average is weighting those larger jurisdictions more heavily, the more urban counties, if you will. They tend to carry more debt. So I really compare you to that unweighted average, and you're slightly above it, but I do think you make up for that in having a decent fund balance level.
But now, in 2010, we were below it.
Exactly. In 2010, you were below it. That's correct.
Okay.
And I just don't know what that number's done since 2010. We're going to get state averages this coming year. We should. We've given them the data, so they should provide it back to us in the comparative cost report. So we'll have an idea of how you stack up in next year in 2015. General fund cash balance at the end of the year, I've got these two lines down at the very bottom. Because you now have a debt covenant on your 2013 A bonds. General fund cash balance was $33 million, just under $34 million, and your debt reserve requirement says you've got to maintain 40% of your outstanding GO bonds in cash. So you've got to maintain about $25 million in cash and cash reserves. And I put that there just to let you know, while it's a healthy fund balance, this bond covenant's going to keep it from dropping, but so much. It's going to keep it in line. The next page just graphs out fund balance and debt. And again, when I'm talking about fund balance, I'm basically your cash position plus short-term receivables minus short-term payables. And you could probably argue that financially you were in better shape in 2010 because the ratio of cash to debt was better. But still, debt balances aren't that large, and unrestricted funds are pretty strong at the end of 2015. But the distance between these two bars here tells you your financial health. The closer they are together, the better off you are. Of course, obviously, if that debt number goes down below the blue line, even better. That means you can pay off all your existing debt with unrestricted funds. Water and sewer net position. Again, this is presented on the full accrual. Kind of made it up to 30 million, just over 30 million, and it's kind of plateaued there since 2014. The next page shows your revenue sources, or by fiscal year, and basically what this points out to you is that your general property taxes are really carrying the load for the county. State aid, when we look at, other local taxes, which are going to be telecommunications taxes, sales taxes, taxes that are generated locally, even though the state may collect them and remit them back to you, they are generated locally, has been fairly consistent, just above that $6 million mark, going all the way back to 2006. The next line down is kind of that green line is Commonwealth taxes and shared expenses. So the shared revenue you get back to the treasurer's office, the commissioners, sheriffs, and so on, and any taxes that are state taxes remitted to you, right at $4 million. Just hasn't really moved since 2006. The next line down shows Commonwealth grants, categorical aid, including capital, and so those are kind of one-time grants that are beaten around, and also CSA and welfare, but they tend to move a little bit as you get capital grants in there. We had a $3 million spike in 2011. That was for, I think, a site grant that you received of $3 million. But what this tells you is that by and large, your revenue sources, or your revenue source that's carrying the load, are going to be your local property taxes. You're not getting a whole lot of help on the operating side from the state. They're just maintaining the support they've given you, going back 10 years, really. The next page just shows your functional expenses by fiscal year. And the top line, it's education, and I say operating out there to the side. We try to separate out capital as best we could. And you see a graph in just a little bit that'll kind of make that that jump up in the education cost and drop back down and go and slant back up. I've kind of explained that a little bit as we look at their activity. But by and large, expenses, with the exception of education, by and large, expenses really haven't grown that much. We had a little spike in 2011 for some fire equipment. I think you purchased probably some fire trucks for that green line that spikes up a little bit. But we don't see any growth out of line. And also, if you look at the, Public Works, General Administration, Judicial Administration, down near the bottom, just not much growth in those expenditures at all. When you remember, we're looking back over a 10-year period here. So really, education's kind of the driver on the expenditure side, and taxes are the driver on the revenue side. The next page, just original tax assessments by year. Everybody had a drop-off in personal property in 2010, and everybody's got this slow incline back up. Personal property values, vehicles and whatnot comes back, or has come back, actually come back pretty strong. Real estate, I don't know when the next reassessment is, or if you had one in here, but you can see you kind of jumped up in 2008 and basically flat on the assessed value since then. It's just a slight bit of growth. Believe it or not, that's not bad. A lot of places we work had a pretty good drop-off, and now they're starting to come back. So the fact that you made it to that plateau and have stayed there is a good sign. The other assessments, your machinery and tools, had a good ride up till 2010, and we depreciate those values. We take a percentage of the original cost, so that's just going to come down. As you have a new industry, it shoots up, then it starts coming back down. Public service, the state does that assessment, and it's kind of all over the map. I don't know how they do their assessments. The next graph on page 7 really shows you the school revenue sources by fiscal year. We had a run-up in state aid up until 2009. Then we had a sharp drop-off. That's the top line up there. State aid for the school board is just now approaching the levels it was back in 2008. I think we just got past 2007 levels, so they're really they're gradually getting back to where they were. That second line down shows you the local government contributions. Your contributions have gone up as that state aid has gone down. And the third line down is federal aid. And the spike you see in 2010, that's the stimulus money coming in. And then you can see it's trailing off, and it actually has dropped below where we were even in 2006. So, state aid for the school board is right at levels they were getting in 2008, and federal aid for the school board 2015 was below the levels they were getting back in 2006. So it gives you some idea of what they're dealing with. Now, I will tell you that on state aid, they had a pretty good ramp up till 2009. So they were getting pretty good increases from the state up until that point. The next couple pages were just our management comments from the audit. Like I said, the audit went well. If we have significant findings, they go in the audit report. If we have things you can improve on, or we see areas for improvement, you get those in the management comments. We did have one finding in the audit report that said we recommended some adjusting entries to the books at the end of the year. Like I told you at the beginning, we recommended fewer this year than last year, and gradually we're just getting better and better. So the staff is kind of learning as we give them those adjustments what they need to do each year. I won't go through all of these, but if you see something you'd like me to talk about, I'm happy to do it. The next page, Meyer talked about fund basis statements being just a short-term look of cash, current receivables, short-term receivables, minus short-term liabilities, and the net of all that is your fund balance. We also present full accrual financial statements for the governmental funds, and that means we've also got a set of financial statements in here that shows this building being depreciated as an asset. Okay. The courthouse, any courthouse renovations, that sort of thing, shown as assets, and then all long-term debt. This year we had to add pension liabilities to those debts. So right here we're showing what the county's net pension liability is, and I give you some information on these new accounting standards. Overall, I think this is probably a good thing because this is going to force state governments and local governments across the nation to kind of deal with their pension plans, because a lot of them have been underfunded. Virginia's probably in better shape than most places. If you look at California, some of the other states, they're really hurting. They've really underfunded. But this tells you that the county's net pension liability, using that middle discount rate, is about $2.5 million. So in other words, if you wanted to settle up with VRS today and say, all right, how much are we in the hole? $2.5 million for the county would do it. So really not that far off. The one that's going to drag everybody down is the statewide teachers pool. So the school board has a net pension liability of that pool of about $34 million. That's their allocable share. So we have this big pool of money at the state, and we have a liability associated with that pool. The difference between that is apportioned out to each school board, essentially based on the number of employees they have. So that's at $34 million. So that tells us that for the short term and long term, we're going to have kind of higher contribution rates for VRS. The statewide teachers pool is significantly higher. The county's going to be higher until we can get these deficits or these balances down. And with what the markets have done recently, I imagine these liabilities have actually grown. The non-professional employees, the liability is pretty nominal there. What we're showing with the discount rate here, when we have these three separate columns, they're taking your liability at some point for each employee at some point in the future, and they're discounting it back to today's dollars. They use a discount rate of 7%, and they're just showing you the sensitivity if they used a discount rate of 6% or 8%. You can also look at that discount rate as their required rate of return on their investments. So if you don't think VRS is going to earn 7% on their investments and they're going to earn 6%, then the true liability is significantly higher than what we've reported in the financial report. If you've been watching the market for the last month, you'd probably be happy with 6% right now. Last couple pages are our standard letter. We're required to give it to you. Basically, if we came in and your staff was uncooperative, they didn't provide us information, or they did something bad, it shows up in this letter. We give you the letter no matter what, because we're required to, but you guys get the boilerplate. So there's nothing in here of concern to discuss with you. I'll kind of stop right there and try to answer any questions about the audit report or the presentation that you have, that you might have.
Any board member have any questions for me? Mr. Dawg?
I guess a general comment for me, based off the debt service and general obligation bonds we have, that any school construction or other type of bond issuance that we do drives that 24 million up significantly. So if we do $10 million school bond this year, then
Increase it $4 million.
so that they don't get, I've been using the number of 28 because we just have issued a $5 million bond and some bonds for water and wastewater, which have driven that up to, I think, around 28 or 29. So if there is a correlation between the bond we issue, that number just keeps going up. You're not retiring some bonds.
That's absolutely correct. It's basically, you've got to keep in reserve 40% of the outstanding amount of your general obligation bonds. You issue 10 million, you got to keep in reserve another 4. So it's
So even those are technically unrestricted funds. There are, I mean, financially, there are some restrictions on it.
right.
Because if we go below that, then it puts us in a world of hurt.
Well, it puts you in technical violation of the bond
Yeah.
covenants, which is not where you want to be.
So even based on what you have here, basically the reserve money that we have to operate on, even on this would be just, would be $9 million. But
Exactly.
if it's 28 million, the debt, then it drops it down to, about 5 or something.
Exactly. The only way to kind of take care of that would be to pay off some of the debt.
Right.
To make a lump
To
sum
lower that
payment.
debt ratio,
Exactly.
yeah.
To get that number down, you're gonna have to pay off debt.
And this is on the June 30th number, which usually September or October is your lowest.
That's correct. That is correct. Absolutely. So your lowest fund balance is gonna come right before tax collections.
Does anybody have any other questions? Not, thank you, Corbin.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey, and as always, thanks for the colored charts.
Oh, you're
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely well.
Makes it easier for us to understand, me anyway.
And my contact information is right there on the front of the presentation, so we work for the board. So if you guys have any questions, anything I can help you with, don't hesitate to contact me.
Okay, Mr. Dalton, you handed, two things from the Speedwell Fire Department you'd like to go over before we go into closed session.
Actually, we got one additional thing I'd like to pass up. Speedwell is requesting permission to purchase a 3/4 ton truck. I think they understand that they found a good deal somewhere. And they've got adequate money in their reserves. They've got over $100,000. They can pay for it, take care of it without asking the county any additional money. As part of our agreement when they were reorganized, they met their obligation, not asking for money, just permission.
But we still have to fuel and insurance costs on the vehicle.
Yes. I assume that they show them a card for that vehicle, just like all the other vehicles.
I have some questions for you that the fire department wanted to know. Well, one of them I think you just answered was who would put the insurance on it. And two is, does it need to be titled to the county? And if you'll get me the information for how you want it titled or whatever, I'll get it to them. Or send it to Jerry or whoever, whichever way you want to do it.
Do it under the Wythe County Board of Supervisors, that's how we title everything from the sheriff's department to
Okay.
the water department.
If the board agrees.
I would assume just before you make that motion.
Well, I was gonna say, if we're ready, I will make the motion that we allow them to buy that truck with their own funds.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
And Gene, I guess for their clarification back to them, typically mid-year, we pay on an annual basis to VACO. If we add a vehicle, unless it's a significant one, there's not any mid-year billing. So it will be on next year's billing that will be out of their allocation.
Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the other one is,
They have an old 350 over there, they'd like it declared surplus, and when it's sold, that the proceeds be distributed back to them to stock, I guess, the latest vehicle that they bought, or we had bought for them, out of the firehouse sale.
I entertain a motion to surplus the 1988 Ford F-350.
I would make that motion, and the proceeds go back to them to stock their new truck.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Second paragraph and the third paragraph that he didn't put in here, I'd ask that it be referred back to either the fire rescue or budget concerning the monies from the sale of the old Dodge pickup truck, and also the difference between the sale of the old firehouse and what we spent to buy the truck in the black.
Yeah. Let's send that back to the Fire and Rescue Committee.
So that'll be on the Martha agenda for the next fire.
May I have, ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Is, we're gonna send it back to the fire and rescue over the truck at Ivanhoe?
We are gonna talk in fire and rescue about the purchase of the truck and the Ivanhoe at the next meeting. And the use, and Mr. McRoberts, and the use of, emergency vehicles, fire and rescue vehicles, for personal usage.
Okay, thank you.
As part of that, Mr. Chairman, I'll talk to Boyd, but we could refer that matter about usage of private, emergency vehicles for private usage, some other things, we need to get that addressed, and Ivanhoe purchasing the truck out of sequence without asking permission after we had paid off their truck. I'll just say it, what they told me, they had money left, so they weren't making the debt service payments. So they went and bought a truck, but that was not our, I understand the board agreement. The trucks are in there, and they ain't gonna buy any more trucks without permission.
Yeah, especially after we paid the debts off to the other vehicles. And, I also would like to look in, using it for, personal use or using the vehicles for business only. Do we need to do an ordinance or a resolution?
If you refer that to fire and rescue, we'll get Scott, Mr. Farthing to address that.
Okay.
An ordinance or resolution.
Well, we'll send that to the Fire and Rescue Committee, and I think we are meeting on February the 8th, on Monday morning.
That's what I was gonna ask. I know that the 15th is a holiday, so 1 week earlier.
I think that's what we decided in the Fire and Rescue.
I didn't
last
remember.
meeting. And remind Jason that, and Land Mine Rescue Squad supposed to have a plan worked out, a business plan worked out. It's
They know the date, we gave it to them.
Okay, then I do remember.
on their situation. Okay, we got the bid tabulations.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Okay, we opened the bids for the Speedwell Division 2 last Thursday at 2 PM in the afternoon, and bids came in rather well. Quick statistical analysis on them. Most folks were within the first standard deviation. There was, on each one, there was one bid that was, I call an outlier. It was kind of way out there, so I didn't put it in the calculation, but they came in well. For Speedwell Division 1, which is about 15,000 square feet, starts at Stutes Corner and comes up this way. King General Contractors at $694,209.65. The engineer of record found a small math error, corrected that, and that's the bid, so that looks good. Division 2 is another 12,000 square feet, where the other one leaves off. Boring Contractors Incorporated picked that one up for $864,660. And that one passed muster also. Bids were responsive, so that's good. So we're moving forward with that project.
We'll go through all the loan closing and other things that'll probably come up in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And April-ish, we should be starting construction once we've passed all the loan closings and give a notice to proceed. And that will bring water from Stutes Corner up to Galilee Church. Now, with the bids coming in so well, and the project budget, $2.9 million or so, we've got about $900,000 in contingency that we could work with, subject to the board's pleasure. We can make some decisions about maybe some other additional work that might be applicable. Of course, as you know, when it comes to water lines, it's the number of connections is a driver there and what you do for connections. So things like Cinnamon Run come to mind. Pretty sure there's not enough money here to enter back into the Pump Hollow discussion, but there is a little leeway. We can come up with some ideas, put those at the water committee, go back to the funding agency and say, hey, here's what we want to do, and then get everybody in concurrence and maybe do a little extra work.
On King General Contractors, yeah, I see footnote 2, and that was where
We found
an error was corrected.
Yeah.
And this includes the corrected
Yes.
error. Is it not significantly lower than most other bids? I mean, I guess when you see something like that, you become maybe a little suspect.
Yeah, he's about $200K less than the others, but he's still within the standard deviation parameters, just a hair below.
So
If I remember right, the engineer estimate for that project was
961,000.
Yeah.
So we're talking about almost $300,000
Yep.
under.
I think what might have happened there is King is already mobilized on your Barron Springs Division 3. He's the guy doing the tank up there. So he probably built in a little economy of scale. He's already kind of here already. He's out of Bristol. So he was probably able to take advantage of some economies of scale in the business.
So if he's from Bristol, he's just gonna pick up a job on the way home.
Exactly. Just drop it off on the way back, yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I know we had problems with one of the contractors down in the Barron Springs area.
Yep.
Both of these are legit and can do the job.
Yep. All the references are being checked now. This was just last Thursday, mind you. Of course, we've been closed for a business day, so Pete and boards are checking the references. But right now, these look good. If anything changes, we will come back to you and let you know about it.
Any more questions on the bid?
Do we need a motion to accept these bids, or?
Not until we finish this investigation.
Okay. All right.
Just let you know we're under budget.
Sounds good.
Think about what we're gonna be doing out in your district.
I know where I wanna go with it, but I don't know that we can get there.
Okay, Mr. Dalton, is anything else to come forward the board at this time?
I would just report to Mr. Chairman that as far as going in closed session of the personnel, you can talk about committee appointments there. Those individuals that the board may be appointing to whatever committee or any appointments by the board, you can discuss in closed session. Just so you know that. So when you go to closed session today, personnel is already on there. We just need to identify part of that personnel to talk about committee appointments, and I'm not sure what the other personnel matter is, whether that's an employee issue or whatever it is, be identified when you make the motion.
Okay. Now I entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Do I need to identify the specific employee or whatever that one is?
Identify the specific employee, you can say it's about either promotion or it can be a disciplinary issue or just a review of an employee. In that sense, and you don't have to identify what department or the person for sure, you don't have to.
At this point in time, it's just
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors convene in closed meetings to discuss the following. As permitted by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, a personnel matter involving committee appointments, and also as permitted by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5, a matter involving a prospective new business or industry in the county.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now in closed session. Motion to come out of closed session.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion second, come out of closed session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You ready? Certification of closed meeting, whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, and considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors.
Do I have a second on certifying the resolution?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Okay, before we go on to appointments, I entertain a motion to accept the audit ending June the 30th, 2015, the county audit.
I make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
To have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Don't know. Any discussion?
I'm afraid to.
Morse code.
Get loaded.
Way up from what it was when we left.
It's at mice.
Okay, have a motion and a second. No further discussion. I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horning?
Aye.
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 Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion passed. Now, we have the appointments to the Appalachian Regional Exposition Center. We have 6. And I'll ask Mr. Willis for the motion.
I'd like to move that we appoint the following people to the following terms. Matthew Miller, 4-year term. Buddy Johnston, 4-year terms. Doug Hughes, 2-year term. Bob Litton, 3-year term. Kathy Pattison, 2-year term. Jimmy Hufford, 3-year term, and 1 open position.
Okay, do I have a second for the motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. We'll discuss the other appointment, our first meeting in February. Mr. Dalton, is anything else to come before the board at this time? Okay, does any other board member have anything?
What, I guess it'll be at the next one, if anybody else is going to Government Day or the General Assembly, February the 10th, say the 10th, 11th is the General Assembly, and want to go to the Rural Caucus meeting, need to let Martha know so we can get you registered. All those events.
Is anybody?
Anybody over there?
I guess it's just me, you, Joe, and Charlie. Did Charlie call? Okay. Does anybody else like to go?
Not unless it's necessary.
Okay. And
Y'all think it'd
Mr.
benefit,
Dalton
I'll
and
go, but-
myself will be going to Richmond tomorrow. House Bill 85 that we asked Jeff Campbell to,
That the equal.
yeah, it comes out up in committee tomorrow at 4. They was gonna bring it up last week, but I didn't know anything about it. Jeff called me and and to give us a chance to go down and speak. He asked the chairman to postpone it until this week. And so that's where we'll be heading tomorrow.
Does there seem to be a lot of support for it?
I think so. The way Jeff talked, it will probably come out of committee. There was one bill similar to it. There's several bills similar to it that he says, but I haven't seen but two that they sent to Finance Committee, Subcommittee 2. They tabled one, and Jeff wasn't sure. He wanted, it was a Democrat that proposed the other bill, and he kind of wanted to roll it into Jeff's bill, but they wouldn't let him roll them all together for some odd reason, but that's the way they operate down there. But he said he didn't know where he asked them to table it, to lay it on the table, or the committee did it, voted and did it on a voice vote. But Slell and myself will be heading down there tomorrow to talk to him. Jeff seems to think that they have enough votes to bring it out of committee.
I don't know, what's the opposition to it? I mean, if anybody opposes it, what's the reason? Do they have a reason?
Taxes. They consider it as them raising taxes, which it's not. It's just giving the counties the ability to.
But it's not mandatory.
No,
You don't want things, you don't buy it.
that's right. So at least they're working with us some, and hopefully we can get it out of committee. And I think if it goes to the floor, I think it'll pass. So, well, anything else? If nothing, I'll declare us adjourned.